Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer, shall we? Today, we're exploring what we call the paradox of power. It's this absolutely fascinating concept of why trying to force control over our lives actually makes us feel, well, totally powerless. You know the feeling, right? We spend so much of our time trying to micromanage every single little detail, the outcomes, the timing, even the way other people respond to us. We plan carefully, we think 3 steps ahead, and we desperately try to stay in front of uncertainty. But the wild truth is, the tighter we grip, the faster the water just slips right through our fingers.
I mean, have you ever really stopped to wonder why achieving so much and managing every single detail of your day still leaves you feeling completely empty and, honestly, just exhausted? Think about planning a simple weekend trip or maybe coordinating a big project at work. It can become such a heavy burden. We kind of convince ourselves that if we just adjust one more detail, if we just plan a tiny bit better, we'll finally unlock that flawless outcome we've been chasing. But that relentless effort, it often turns into a massive, stressful obligation. The progress stops feeling natural and starts to feel completely forced. It creates this intense mental friction that literally drains the meaning out of everything we do.
Moving on to Section 1, the illusion of control and letting go of the uncontrollable.
So we have to start by looking at this totally exhausting reality. Constantly trying to manage future outcomes and other people's reactions literally only builds internal tension. Now, to be clear, the problem here isn't effort, and it certainly isn't discipline. The issue is when that effort mutates into control. Because effort stays grounded in what you can actually do right now in the present moment. Control, on the other hand, reaches way beyond that. It tries to micromanage outcomes that haven't even happened yet and predict reactions that just aren't guaranteed. And this is exactly where we see the difference between the untrained mind and the mastered mind. See, the untrained mind automatically assumes it's the center of the universe. That, say, a blunt email from a colleague is a direct, personal attack. It reacts to chaos and grips outcomes so tightly. But the mastered mind, it simply observes the chaos. It steps back, realizing that the world just offers events, not inherent meanings, and it analyzes intent rather than absorbing the blow.
Marcus Aurelius actually hit the nail on the head here. He perfectly captured this core Stoic truth. Think about it. Tying our emotional stability to highly unpredictable external events just creates constant, exhausting fluctuation. If your peace of mind rises and falls with outcomes you can't even predict, like the shifting moods of your boss or a sudden change of plans, your internal state is always going to be unstable. It's like a roller coaster you didn't ask to be on. But governing our perception, knowing that our true power lies solely in our own minds, that is what gives us unshakable strength.
Which brings us to Section 2, the power of the pause and creating space.
Look, we are all so used to reacting instantly, right? But true mastery comes from actively redesigning your inner system. A dismissive word, a fleeting glance, or even someone suddenly cutting you off in a meeting, that can flare into real tension if you leave it unchecked. So the crucial point here is mastering this rapid 3-step sequence. First, you notice the spark, that initial surge of hot emotion. Second, you create the pause. And it doesn't have to be long at all, literally just a brief, deliberate moment. And finally, third, you intentionally choose your response. You actually evaluate if reacting is going to serve a meaningful purpose or if it's really just your ego demanding immediate validation.
I cannot stress this enough. Even the briefest pause acts as a conscious assertion of your own sovereignty. It is the profound difference between being swept violently downstream by your emotions and standing safely on the shore just watching the current flow by. When you pause, clarity finally enters the chat. The insult loses its sting, the provocation loses its momentum, and suddenly you are no longer subject to circumstance. By pausing, you actively rob the insult of its power over you.
And by creating this crucial pause, we do something amazing. We decouple the factual data from the emotional residue. We literally escape the imagined suffering that our minds just automatically construct for us. Seneca's words are such a great reminder here. A past betrayal doesn't need to dictate your present distrust. It's really just evidence that informs your judgment going forward. Your memory should be a library you learn from, right? Not some heavy chain that binds you to prior wounds.
All right, Section 3, the strength and emptiness, dropping the ego.
Now, we reach what might honestly be the most counterintuitive piece of wisdom in this whole explainer. The idea that to gain everything, we must first become nothing. Now, stay with me here. We all want an identity, right? A title, a relationship, a status that the world recognizes. But hiding right behind this identity is a really quiet, invisible fear. If we become nothing, who are we? Well, we need to totally reframe this word.
Emptiness isn't some negative, dark void. It's actually a profound state of wholeness that's completely free from the prison of labels. It's where the ego disappears, leaving pure awareness without any resistance or inner conflict. It's this incredible space where you act, but your actions don't control you. Where you play a role, but you never actually lose yourself inside that identity.
Just to survive, we've basically created these exhausting identity traps for ourselves. We desperately cling to the ego, to past memories, social labels, and all those heavy external expectations. We hold on to these old masks just because they make us feel safe, right? It's so easy to define ourselves by our job titles or our past successes. But here's the magic. When we systematically strip away these layers, we tap into a silent, completely unshakable presence. Emptiness was never a destination you had to reach. It was actually always there, just buried beneath all this noise.
And so, here is the ultimate paradox. Letting go of those desperate desires and identity attachments actually radiates an energy that allows life and influence to just flow toward you completely effortlessly. Imagine walking into a super high-stakes job interview, but without that desperate, gripping need for the outcome. Because you aren't forcing it, you are calm, you're present, and you're naturally confident. When you no longer chase outcomes from a mindset of lack, everything just begins arriving on its own. You essentially become a hollow flute. You create no music on your own, but you allow the universe to breathe through you to create something truly beautiful.
Okay, Section 4, Flipping Rejection into Fuel, and the Art of Reverse Psychology.
So let's take these internal philosophies and apply them to something we all hate, the external sting of rejection. We're going to talk about treating indifference as a tool for our own growth. When a door slams in our face, let's say you're passed over for a promotion, or maybe left off an important project at work, our immediate instinct is to feel totally undervalued. But look at the stark difference here. While the instinctive mind begs for validation through emotional outbursts and over-explaining, the Stoic mind, it uses reverse psychology. It opts for silence, for emotional distance, and quietly building social status. Instead of begging for attention from someone who's ignoring you, you turn inward. You reaffirm your own value. You don't perform louder to try and catch their gaze. Instead, you just firmly anchor yourself in your own independence.
These are highly actionable steps for dealing with being overlooked. First step, ignore their indifference. Honestly, it's truly their loss, not yours. Then, work on maintaining emotional distance. Now, actually, scratch that. It's not about building cold, angry walls. It's really about drawing healthy professional lines. You have to separate the factual data of the rejection from the emotional pain of it. And most importantly, channel all that pent-up energy into improving your own skills. Doing this flips the script. It turns a perceived slight into a massive catalyst for self-improvement and quiet authority.
Because think about it, remaining emotionally distant actually breaks the expected feedback loop of manipulation. When someone directs something negative at you, whether it's an outright insult or just a subtle slight, they naturally expect a reaction, right? They want to complete that loop. But by offering silence, you leave the loop completely open. The focus immediately snaps right back to them, leaving the provocateur totally powerless and guessing, while you perfectly preserve your internal peace. It's an active, highly strategic boundary, not a passive retreat.
And finally, Section 5, the unshakable inner fortress, layered presence.
Let's pull all of this together into our ultimate goal, building an absolutely impenetrable psychological structure. The Stoics used to call this the inner fortress. It's a sanctuary completely untouched by whatever crazy circumstances are happening outside. This dual presence, being fully engaged in the world yet totally detached internally, it commands profound respect without ever needing to exert aggressive force. It means you can be outwardly warm and enthusiastic, all while internally scanning and mapping the interaction without ever surrendering your emotional energy. It makes you incredibly adaptable, kind of like water flowing perfectly to the contours of a container, yet structurally unshakable.
True sovereignty at the end of the day comes from regulating our reactions. It's treating our emotional currency as a highly precious resource that we and we alone govern. Epictetus perfectly sums this up. He reminds us that freedom isn't found in trying to control the outside world, because good luck with that, right? True freedom is found in ensuring that the outside world doesn't control your impulses.
By mastering these key traits, things like unpredictable engagement, selective visibility, and really decoupling your memories from their painful emotions, you create an incredibly layered, adaptable presence. And people will notice. Others will naturally sense your unwavering composure. They will quickly realize that their attempts to manipulate or provoke you yield absolutely nothing. It's almost like a superpower.
Your influence emerges completely organically, driven entirely by quiet clarity rather than brute force.
So I leave you with this question. The next time chaos rears its ugly head or a door slams right in your face, what are you going to do? Will you react instinctively and just surrender your power to the current, or will you use the pause, detach from the ego, and retreat to your unshakable inner fortress? The choice and the true power is entirely yours.